Hello everyone, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today we are going to look at two times that Jesus comes back in Revelation. One time is when he comes to do the battle of Armageddon. When he comes that time, he is going to be on the Mount of Olives. We can find that in Zechariah 14:3 and 4. And then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations in the day of battle, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. So when he comes back to do battle, he's going to be on the Mount of Olives. But we also find out in Revelation that he's going to come back onto Mount Zion. That's in Revelation 14:1. And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. Because the 144,000 are with him, lets us know that this is in the midst of the tribulation. The tribulation begins with 7 seals being opened, and after the 6th seal is opened, the 144,000 Jews are given the mark of God on their foreheads. So therefore, they have already received the mark, they have already lived, and probably have already died, and now are coming back with Jesus onto Mount Zion. And in this same time span, there is a harvest of the earth. That's found in the same chapter, chapter 14, verses 14 through 20. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, and he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. In this passage, the earth is reaped 2 times. One is in verse 16, and that's when the saved people are reaped, because when the earth is reaped in verse 19, they're thrown to where the wrath of God is. Now, when is the wrath of God dispensed? We can find that in 3 separate verses in Revelation. Revelation 15:1, Revelation 16:1, and Revelation 11:18. Let's start out by reading Revelation 15:1. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up with the wrath of God. The 7 last plagues that this verse is referring to are the 7 last judgments that God is going to dispense on this earth. And in some versions, they are referred to as vials, like I've got the King James Version, and they are called vials in this Bible. But if you have a newer Bible, it may have the word bowls in there, but they are one and the same. Let's go to chapter 16, verse 1. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, Go your way and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. Now let's flip over to chapter 11, verse 18. And this is right at the 7th trumpet as it's fixing to be blown. And when the 7th trumpet is blown, that just starts the bowls or the vials being poured out in the earth. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come. So whose wrath are they talking about? It's God's wrath. God's wrath is going to be dispensed when the 7th trumpet is blown and the bowls are poured out on the earth. So we have God's wrath and the harvest of the earth, and Jesus coming back to Mount Zion, all in the same time span. And what's fascinating is that there are 2 Old Testament prophets that prophesied that there will be deliverance on Mount Zion in the latter days. One is Obadiah. And Obadiah is a kind of a hard book to find. It's only 1 chapter. And in verse 15, he lets us know that he's talking about the day of the Lord, and the day of the Lord is synonymous for when the Lord will return. And in verse 17, he says, But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. Now turn back 2 books from that to Joel 2:32. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord has said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. So because we have these two Old Testament prophets, both Obadiah and Joel, prophesying that there is going to be deliverance on Mount Zion, and we find that in Revelation Jesus does come to Mount Zion, it should start us to thinking about when we really believe that Jesus will come to deliver us. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it's as beautiful there today as it is here. And I hope that you will subscribe to my channel. I will be doing another video soon comparing this harvest of the earth to the harvest of the earth that Jesus tells us about in Matthew. Thank you again, and may God bless you.